Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township, May 19th, 2020. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic
for which
it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And at this time, I'd like to ask if Mr. Bob Tinneberry could open us up in prayer.
Okay, thank you. Shall we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, we are so thankful that you are a God that is in control of each of our lives and the conditions of this world. I pray for the meeting tonight and for those that have decisions to make. And I just pray that the decisions that they do make would be in accordance with your will and purpose. And we do trust you to give us that guidance. Now we pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, number 2, approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda is submitted.
Support.
Okay, motion by Mr. Steiner, supported by Mr. Clemens. Any discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Okay, moving on to item 3, the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends to A, approve and place on file the minutes of the May 5th, 2020 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, accept and place on file the general savings, pooled funds, and CD reports from the treasurer. C, approve and place on file the revenue expense report and ballot sheet for the period ending April 30th, 2020. Ms. Tinneberry?
I'd like to pull off number C because I have a question regarding that and discuss it soon after you approve the consent agenda.
Okay. So you want to add that? You just want to, do you want to add it to, put it to like 8A instead or something like that? We'll do that.
You can put it any place you want. I just have questions.
Okay. We have support.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion. Seeing none, could you call the roll, Ms. Hirschberger?
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Moving on to public comment. Comments limited to 2 minutes for board agenda items only. Go ahead. We'll wait about 30 seconds here. I know Buckeye's a few seconds behind here, so.
There's something in the lobby, or there's something calling in. Am I the only one that sees that?
No, I see it.
No, I see it. Does George have to admit him, or?
That's how. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, I'm here. This is Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. And I'm calling to make a comment to the agenda. I oppose any radical, politically charged board member suggesting that a resolution be passed by the board as a whole that speaks to governmental law on my behalf without having a public hearing. I also think that this may be a good time to voice opposition, irregardless of my personal beliefs, for citizens of this township to be forced to hear at a governmental meeting prayer from licensed clergy, soapbox preachers, or public at large, because that too should be considered if they're going to be making resolutions regarding governmental law. You made a pledge of allegiance. The last two meetings, there have been issues brought out by opposing parties regarding our governor. And I take offense to that. We need to take care of the laws and the rules here in this township. We can't handle those. So I do not want the board speaking. We each have legislators, and we should be making those calls ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Keen. Go ahead with the next comment. Go ahead with your comments. State your name and address, please.
Judy Freeman, 6813 Brent Ridge Lane, Lambertville, Michigan.
How you doing?
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I have a comment on campers, boats, trailers, parked in driveways. I listen to these board meetings and know this board's set up rules pertaining to what I mentioned. The only problem is it is left up to citizens to report those neighbors not following these rules. I called the ordinance office on Friday on 2 neighbors disobeying the rules. Told I had to give my name, address, phone number. Asked, can these neighbors find out who reported them? Was told, yes, they can. So if I report neighbors, they can find out who reported them, and if I don't, they can keep breaking the rules, and I can look at trailers, campers, etc. I feel this shouldn't be put on neighbors to report people breaking the law. When we bought our property to build, we saw no boats, campers, etc. We wouldn't have built on our street if we had seen boats and trailers, etc. What's my resale value? I don't know if it's affected or not by this. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public, Mr. Welling?
Hello?
How you doing? Go ahead and state your name and address and give us your comments.
Hi, Aaron Adler, 3873 Meadowview Street, Lambertville. I just wanted to voice my comment tonight about my concern over contact tracing and all that we've been hearing in the public here about contact tracing. I could emphasize the HR 6666 or whatever that crazy bill is that they've got going on. I think more relevant to us in our community is the governor's 15-page six-step plan that specifically on the plan.
Hey, Mr. Adler, Mr. Adler, we're having a hard time hearing you, and whoever keeps coughing, you need to mute your end. It's making it hard for the board members to hear. You're hard to hear, Aaron.
Okay, sorry.
It's better.
Just concern over contact tracing. I think the governor's 15-page six-step plan leaves more than a lot to be desired. I think references to contact tracing in the document are vague, and I'm concerned over how that's implemented, especially here on a township level. I think all of you should have concerns about that too, and I would urge you to read the 15-page document and see, what conclusions you can make from that. And, just looking forward into the future, if it's going to come down to the state of Michigan telling this township that, they have to implement unconstitutional measures or what people on that board find to be unconstitutional, I, for one, am happy for you to forego state funds. If they're going to dangle money and dangle funds and say, you got to do this or you got to do that in order to get our money, tell them they can keep their money and we'll keep our freedom. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public? Good evening. Go ahead and state your name and address and give us your comments.
Hi, this is Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive. 2 comments. One having to do with the repair work at the fire station. You're at $700,000 plus. And as one trustee said one time, you're spending money before you've appropriated it or know where the funds are coming from to pay for it. That seems to be a little bit backwards here. I know that the treasurer was supposed to go out and try and find some funds, but to my knowledge, at least I see nothing in the records that say that's been procured. Number 2, 8M. I take offense that this board would try to say to me, you don't need to be checked for COVID-19. You don't need to be traced. The HR 666, I doubt that all of you have read it. It's a voluntary program, and it is not a mandatory program. And so if one of the trustees has an issue with it, I think they should bring it up personally. But as a board, you shouldn't infringe on my right to participate with it if that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Have a good night. George, any more comments from the public? Okay, all right, moving on to unfinished business. Is that a comment, George? Is that a comment from the public? Did we miss one? No? Approval of the Bedford Township Board and Administrative Policies Manual, Ms. Tinneberry.
When this was taken up at the previous meeting, it was decided by the board that it was taking too long to discuss completely. So everyone said that they were going to send in their comments, their concerns, and their suggestions about how to change it. I only received an email from Trudy, the clerk. No one else gave any idea that they had any interest actually in the policy or to make changes. So Trudy and I worked together to discuss the concerns that she had. We actually, long story short, we came to an agreement. She gave in on some things, I gave in on some things, and I believe the policy you have, were they all emailed this new policy, Trudy?
Yes, it was emailed.
Okay, so you all have a copy of the revised changes that were made. So I'm prepared to make a motion unless there are questions and concerns from other board members at this point, but unless there isn't, I would be, actually I'd be offended if someone puts it off so that we can't vote on it tonight, because there was plenty of time, 2 weeks, to send me or Trudy or someone your request for changes, so.
Mr. Steiner?
Nancy, as you well know, and I was okay with what you and Larry and I put together. It's the reason I did not add anything to you. The first thing I've seen in, any changes is just what you and Trudy had talked through separately. And with those changes that you seem to agree on, I also don't have a problem with.
Thank you, Rick. It's true. I mean, I didn't mean to make it out as if it were mine. It certainly was an effort, many, many months with Larry, Odell, Rick Steiner, and myself many years ago. And so I appreciate, I like you had agreed to whatever we had decided, but Trudy's comments were well taken, and some things have changed since the 2013, and so I was in agreement, and I would hope that you would all be in agreement as well.
Well, like I said, I had the one change for the board packets that are put together by the clerk right now, and the agendas that are put together, so I made sure that it said clerk or supervisor, so, and then I know Mr. Byer came up and had a little conversation with you, but for the most part, I thought, what was done looked pretty good, and I know some of the changes that Trudy had in mind with you, and I think it looks good.
Okay, well, you did have that change, but we incorporated that, so
Yeah.
I wasn't, okay.
Good. Okay, I look for a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we adopt the Board and Administrative Policies Manual as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion. Nancy, I want to thank you for taking the bull by the horns and getting that done. It's been long overdue. I appreciate it. You got a few other tasks to get done before you retire, though, so make sure you keep
I'm working on them.
Yeah, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. So, okay. Up next is 8C.
Gotta go through the vote,
Well,
Paul.
actually, 3C.
Hey, you want to vote on that?
Oh yeah. Let's
I
go
knew-
ahead.
I know you'd try to slip it by. We need a vote.
Go ahead, Ms. Hershberger.
Ms. Tinneberry,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Montry,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Up next is 3C. Approve and place on file the revenue expense report and balance sheet for the period ending April 30, 2020. Ms. Tinneberry, hold that off.
Yes, I couldn't let it go by without this, Mr. Francis, this is the document that you told me in the past that I need to look at in terms of finding where the budget is according to percentage spent and unspent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I did that. I've done that for the last two reports that we've gotten. And we won't go into it tonight. I just wanted to bring it up in this board meeting so that in the budget meeting that we have later this week, correct? In the budget meeting, we are $90,750 over budget without a budget amendment. We have no budget amendments to any of these. How can we be spending without approval? So we're going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about that in the budget. So if you, the other board members, please look it over and see what I see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 departments or funds are over budget. So that's all I had to say. I move that we approve the balance sheet for Bedford Township period ending 4/30/2020 as presented.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Tinneberry, supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion, Ms. Hirschberger.
I just wanted to say, Nancy, this is something that when we were talking about the policy that we had brought up to start doing some kind of discussion with the finance director to make sure before you purchase something that you're not over budget. And this new policy that we just approved will help us with that.
I agree, and I thank you for that. I'm just concerned that we're all going to be a part of that.
Trudy, is that something that he could just do anyways without being asked? Just to kind of, I mean, does it take him that much time to just check to see if that puts a department over budget? And if it does, he could just make them aware?
The problem is, by the time he gets a bill, it's due, and he has to pay it. I'm sorry?
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Francis. I get what you're saying.
Well, let Trudy finish. That's fine.
No, I just wanted to make sure he understood what I was saying because it kind of cut out in and out.
Just as a point of clarification, the departments that Nancy was speaking of are not over budget. It's line items in those departments. There are several. I agree with you, Nancy. There are several in the various departments. None of the departments are over budget in total. It's just that they have some of the line items in their department have exceeded the budget for one reason or another. And we need to work on that. We've talked about that and talked about that and talked about that. I think it's difficult to do because of the bills in the pipeline, if you will. By the time this thing is printed, there are already another stack of bills.
Is there something in BSNA, Trudy, that would pop up and show that it's over, but is there any tools in there that we can use, or?
It does show when the line item is over budget, but like I said, by then it's too late. There's a bill that has to be paid. It needs to be asked prior to purchasing if you have the money in there to buy something. Or you watch this on your own every month when it comes out and say, oh, I'm getting close. I know I'm going to be spending more money out of this budget. I need to go ask for a budget adjustment before I'm over budget. It shouldn't be on the finance director. It should be on every department to look at their budget and make sure they're not going over.
Mr. Clemens?
Question to Ms. Hirschberger. By our budget meeting on Thursday, could you ask Mr. Manning, on average, what is the lag time from the moment a bill hits his desk till the moment it's actually entered and represented on any one of the budget reports? Because I think what we're going to find is that lag is where there's a lag between receipt and printing, which in all likelihood is the generation of one copy, And by the time each department head, if they're paying attention to it, is looking at it, they're 45 to 60 days behind the power curve.
Well, I can see this as somebody that has asked in the past about a department going over budget. I do ask, but like you just said, you know, something might be lagging and that's, you know, it's tough to catch. Ms. Hershberger?
I was just gonna say that once we get the bill, within 2 or 3 days, it's entered into the system, but we all know that bills aren't paid right away unless they're consumers or Michigan Gas or something like that. They're held till the next board meeting. So they're in there and they will show in the line item before he prints this.
So does each department head have the ability to see their encumbered budget?
They can, all they have to,
Okay.
I mean, they'll get this, but they could come to us and ask for, like the park board comes to us and asks for those balance sheets, as you're aware of. So DDA does it too.
We could give Dave purchase orders as well, and then he could check to see if that's something within the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't even need purchase orders per se, an email. I'm looking to buy this for this amount. I usually ask him. I go in there and ask, how much money do I have in my budget? This is what I need to buy. I want to make sure it's in there before I purchase it.
Okay. Any other comments, Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, we talked before about having our department heads meet with the 3 full-time elected officials at least once a month. Should send a regular report to each of the department heads. And they don't have to ask for it. It's an automatic document that they can get. Doesn't take long for Dave to generate a document out of the system. And these guys should know and follow their budget. A couple years back, at least, we talked about that happening. So we need to try to get that pushed back up on the agenda for the department heads and the full-time elected officials to review those every month as a team. Otherwise, we're never going to get away from this problem.
Trudy, is there something more we can get on more of a weekly, bi-weekly basis from Dave, like a more of a report that updates and shows?
We could do that.
And
Just an automatic,
of it?
just an automatic report that we could send out every Friday or something.
And have maybe highlight different things we can, and then make it everybody looks over it every bi-weekly. Okay, so we got a motion, a support. Could you call the roll, please? Or Ms. Hershberger, your hand's up still.
Oh,
Yeah, nothing else, right? All right,
no.
you call the roll.
Ms. Tinneberry,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8A, vouchers for payment.
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $103,698.68. Fire District, $19,935.28. Police Fund, $2,090.97. Park Fund, $4,848.74. Transit System Fund, $36,959. Library Fund, $402.40. Water Revenue Fund, $1,824.61. Stonegate SAD, $224.50. Downtown Development Authority, $1,975. Sewer O&M Fund, $441,739.72. Trust and Agency Fund, $269, for a grand total of $613,967.90.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion?
Yes, I got one. Go ahead.
Go first. Mine's just a quick one that I apologize I didn't see sooner, but I was curious so it'd be like page 2 under ordinance. It says legal fees and it's to Monroe News. And I just didn't know is that like I don't know, that just seemed wrong. I was like I said, I was just going back over stuff and I just didn't know if anybody knows, is that right? Or is that something that is,
That's for publishing legal notices.
okay,
It's not legal expense, but there isn't an account that hits it right on the nose, but I'm sure that's what that is. We have it every
Okay.
month.
Mr. Francis?
The question that I had is, I don't have a check number in front of me, but it is a check to La Scala IT for a computer, $944.84. I'd like some clarification on what the need is for that and the like. Maybe some of you already know the answer, but I don't. So could we have some clarification?
Well, about 3 days before, I was trying to figure out the iPad to be able to use for meetings. My laptop is junk here, doesn't work, and doesn't have the camera. So I needed one for these meetings, so I bought one. And couldn't go to a store and buy one, so called the Scala IT and he ordered me one up.
Do you have a desktop computer also or not?
At home or at work?
At work.
Yes, but it doesn't have a camera. Can't do the meetings from the desktop. That's why Miss Tinneberry's not she's at a laptop right now, not at the desktop.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you have a computer in the office, you have an iPad, and you have a laptop now, all purchased by the township, correct?
I have a computer at work that doesn't have a camera, so I can't do the meetings from a camera. I have an iPad that was purchased and the assessing department actually needed and used it for a year, became obsolete. Okay, I tried to use the iPad, so now that can't be used for this. So then a few days before, I had to get a laptop.
I was just asking for clarification and justification of why it's a township expense. So that was my question. That was my question.
The township requires me to be on this camera right now and on this meeting. So that's why. Does that satisfy you?
Well, I agree. I guess I'd caution you not to use that laptop for personal because it's foilable, because it's the township asset.
I totally understand that.
Okay,
Believe me, I've been FOIA'd 147 times by the same person in the last 2.5 years. Believe me, I'm not concerned about FOIAs.
okay.
But if the township needs me, you know what I mean? If I have to be using on this, you know, it's like any expense. If I require assessing department to go out and measure, I don't tell them to go buy themselves a tape measure. You know, ordinance, same thing. So.
I understand.
Moving on.
Thank you for the clarification.
Oh, thank you for the question. Okay, so we are on item
Roll
8.
call.
Roll call, Ms. Hershberger.
Hershberger votes aye. Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8B, approval of a resolution to establish residential and commercial mechanical permit fee schedules. Linda Welling on the phone. She's going to handle this one.
Yes, thank you. Actually, it's just a minor change. Previously, the mechanical inspector was paid 75% of the permit fee at the time a permit was finalized out. Mechanical permits for new homes can last and stay open over a year, and the apartment permits were open over 18 months. The inspector felt he was not being compensated in a timely manner for his inspections. So about 4 or 5 months ago, we made the change to pay him $45 per inspection, which is paid every 2 weeks. As a result, it was necessary for us to clarify on the permit form how many inspections would be allowed per category. Previously, we allowed 3 inspections for new home HVAC, even though traditionally only 2 were required, a rough and a final. We also needed to increase the reinspection fee to $50 instead of $30 because we need to cover that reinspection cost. I want to point out that this fee is not charged unless the inspection fails or the inspector is locked out, and therefore we have to pay the inspector for that inspection. Are there any questions about that?
Board members, comments, questions? Ms. Tinevery?
I don't have a question about about Linda's changes in the amount, but I'm wondering why we need a resolution establishing the mechanical permit fee schedule. Why does it have to be a resolution? Can't we just change our permit fees by the board without a resolution?
I think it's because it's in the ordinance.
What ordinance? The construction code business that the building
Right.
inspector?
Bedford Township Construction and Fire Code Ordinance number 70. The fees are included in it. Is that
Okay, so
correct,
we're
Bill?
just changing the ordinance. Okay, got it. Thank you.
That's correct. The ordinance allows the board to change the fee structure by resolution without amending the ordinance. So Kim is absolutely 100% correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, no further questions. I look for a motion.
I move we adopt the resolution establishing residential and commercial mechanical permit fee schedule as presented.
Second.
I'm sorry, who made the second?
Mr.
Rick.
Steiner did.
Okay.
Any discussion? Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Tinevery?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8C, approval of an RFP to provide audit services. Ms. Hirschberger?
So this was put out for bid quite a while ago. We received 3 audit proposals. I was very happy. They came from multiple locations in Michigan. And the costs I included in here. I also included what the RFP was. And the 3 bids were pretty close to each other in costs. The low bid, the difference between the low bid and the second bid were about $1,000. And you can see the bids from there on. High bid was a lot higher than the low bid by almost $3,000. And then they increased some a lot, some a little throughout the years if we wanted to continue this for 5 years. I can tell you, I don't know any of them. I can tell you that the low bid and the second one contacted me. The low bid, which is Gaybridge and Company. They did some background research before they contacted me, so they knew about our audits in the past and what our financial status was. And Raymond contacted us just to ask questions about what we paid and some other questions about what we were looking for in the bid. Did not hear from Manor, the high bid, at all. I don't know who they are, and they never contacted us with any questions whatsoever.
Well, I did a little bit of homework on this. Raymond Group does do Bedford Public Schools, so I contacted Dr. Carl Schultz. He spoke extremely highly of the Raymond Group, and just, had a lot of positive feedback on the, accessible and just, very well, easy to work with. The owner, Daniel Clark, is local, lives in Bedford Township. They have offices in Detroit and Toledo, but he does live in Bedford. We talked to Dave Ewell, and he says they've been great to work with. They're fixing some issues they weren't aware of, they didn't know about. And as well as the continuing on, like at the 4-year period, there's just, he said that there's money on extra money in case, costs go up. If it doesn't cost them any more over the years, the 4-year period, then it won't cost us much more. We'll save money, the way he explained it to me. So by year 3, if it's still less money, we'll get money back, is the way he explained it to me. Any more comments from Stenberry?
I too did some research on these 3 companies. My concern, and I found all good reports, but my concern is that I know what you just said, that at the 2024, if the economy tanks and things go up, it'll have to be 26,008. They'll stick with their original quote, but as I look at Gaybridge and Company, who also got very good reviews, they're only increasing by $1,000 by the end of the 5 years. So, and their 2024 bid at $22,700 is only $650 more than Raymond's first year. I do like the idea that you mentioned that one of the persons from Raymond lives in Bedford. That is important to me, but Gaybridge also had excellent reviews, and I know people in the Grand Rapids area that use them, and they didn't have anything but good to say about them. So I think either way we go in that regard, we're going to be better off than we were.
Mr. Francis?
I reviewed all 3 of these in quite a lot of detail. I'm used to these over the years in my professional life, and they're very well presented. All 3 of the responses were very well constructed. In my judgment, if it was my decision to make a loan, I would pick Raymond, mainly because of the local presence. They have a Toledo office for one thing, and one of the principals lives in Bedford Township, as Mr. Peroni mentioned earlier. They do a lot more. They're a bigger firm than Gaybridge. Gaybridge has about, 70 people, and the other one has 2 or 3 times that amount of employees, which is good. But it's a local contact, if you will. So that's the one that I would prefer, is the one in the middle.
Mr. Montroy?
Raymond and Company.
I'm glad that you brought that up, Paul. What would in your professional opinion, because something I was considering, like with this is like, I just don't know because I don't think that the lowest bid is always the way to go. And this was the kind of thing that I was trying to think through. What more are you going to get? I didn't know about that he's a Bedford resident. I can appreciate that. But like in your professional opinion, what advantages do we get with having that local better service that's worth the differential?
Well, if the finance director has a question on something, the guy can stop in and see him on his way to work, for one thing. The Gaybridge is located in Grand Rapids, which is quite a ways away. Chances are they would not ever come down here during the year unless something drastic happened, which hasn't in the past and hopefully will never happen here. But
Ms. Hirschberger?
I just wanted to let you know, Lori just contacted me, and the gentleman from Gaybridge is on the phone. I don't know if we want to let him in to talk. I don't know. I just wanted to let you know that she contacted me to let me know he was holding.
I was going to say there's 2 people in the lobby. I noticed. I don't know do we know who the other one is?
I know that Jim Jacobs is in the lobby.
Jim is. I can speak. When we talked to Gaybridge today with Cindy Grice in Boyne City, they had no issues. They've been easy to work with. They just renewed a 3-year engagement. Called City of Greenville, no issues. They're no longer using them because they were not low bidder. Called Joe Verlin with Gamebridge, not to exceed price. It was listed. He has done work in Monroe County, has experience with all forms of governments and schools. But so I don't have any questions for him. I mean, I think it's extremely important to support our local people. I don't think the price is that big of a difference to where, we can't justify, it's not a $20,000, $30,000 price difference. We're talking $1,000. And like I said, over the years, there's the inflation, but he said if it doesn't cost that much to do it, then we'll see a reduction. So, unless other board members, I don't think it's fair though if we didn't give all three of them opportunities to. That's up to the board. If the board wants to.
They all knew when the meeting was. They could have called in.
Does anybody have questions for him?
I don't have questions, but I think out of courtesy, if somebody was calling my house and I didn't answer them, I think it would be discourteous.
Well, it's not public comment time, and if nobody has any questions for him, we're not going to bring them through. If somebody has specific questions for him, we'll bring them through, but if not, there's no point in doing so.
I would like to know if they would come here. As someone said, they wouldn't be coming down here.
Okay, patch them through, George. Okay, go ahead, state your name and address, and Ms. Hirschberger's got a couple questions for you.
Yes, my name is Joe Verlin.
You said Joe?
Yeah.
Joe, my question is, because you're in Grand Rapids, would you be coming down here during an audit or someone from your firm to do this audit? That's what we're used to, is someone coming in and performing our audit.
Yes, we would have an audit team on site to conduct the field work. And we work with over 200 local units of government throughout the state of Michigan, and that's our process. We're on site. We conduct the field work on site. We have exit conference on site, as well as a meeting with the board afterwards to make sure that we provide feedback in terms of the results. So even though we're not Bedford, we certainly are there, and we'll make sure that we're available. A face-to-face meeting is needed. We're just a phone call away, and we're happy to be on site. The nature of how it works, we know that we need to travel to our clients, and we're always happy to make that investment.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments or questions for him? Okay, seeing none. Thanks for being on. Appreciate it.
Sure. Yep. Glad to be here.
What's the board's pleasure, Mr. Montre? Did you have a question, or are you just waving goodbye? Okay, waving goodbye. Any other discussion? Mr. Francis?
My comment regarding them coming on site wasn't for the audit. They are going to be on site for the audit. It's during the year between the audits. If something comes up, are they going to be able to service us at fast and in person if we have something during the year? And I doubt very seriously, unless it's a huge problem, that anybody from Grand Rapids would drive 3 hours to get here to answer a question. That was the comment. It wasn't the audit on site. They all do audits on site.
I think that's him waiting to answer the question. Oh, it shows it on the thing, to admit, but.
Any other board members have any comments or questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that we accept the bid for auditing services for the year 2021. That the bid was submitted by Raymond and Company.
I'll support that.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Montry. Discussion, Ms. Tinneberry?
This is a one-year contract, correct? We're not making it a 5-year contract. This is a one-year contract to determine if this company works it out. Was the motion a one-year contract or a 5-year contract?
I don't think we asked for a 5-year contract. I think I'd have to read the RFP, but I thought it was a 1-year contract.
All the bids have the 5-year quotes, so I don't know.
Well, we asked for that in addition,
Yes,
Okay.
we did.
that if we were happy with them, we would renew at those rates.
Okay.
So
So
this
it's not
is,
necessarily needing to be.
Am I
in the
stating
contract.
that correctly, Trudy?
Right. Well, we asked for 2 years in the RFP. It says, if you look, if selected, certified public accountant performs satisfactory for the June 30th, 2020 audit, the same firm would be engaged to perform the audit for the succeeding 2 years. So only if we are satisfied would this contract extend 2 more years.
So you can still opt
okay,
out.
so the
And they can
wording
opt out
of
too.
this, so the wording of this motion is it's for the this audit that's coming up July 1st.
I did mention that, yes.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Hirschberg, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Okay, item 8, D, approval of the noxious weed mowing bid. Go ahead, you can let Mr. Cecil and he can discuss this as well.
This is just so the board knows, this is the only bid we received when we put this out.
That is correct. That is the only one. That is also currently who we have been using, and we've had absolutely excellent service from them. So I would ask the board if they would to accept that.
I'll give you the green light, Nancy. Go ahead.
Thank you. So is this $45 per hour currently the hourly wage price that we're paying?
I believe so, yes.
Well, I don't want to believe, I want to know.
Yeah, as
Yes.
far as I
Is
know,
it-
that's what they were charging. Yes.
I believe that's true also, Nancy.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
They've
3
been very-
beliefs is good for
they've
me.
been
It's
very
a,
easy to work with on top of things for Miss Shayla. After talking with her, she mainly deals with the grass, and so been a good relationship. So I look for a motion.
I'd like to
Mr.
move that, oh, go ahead.
I'll
Greg had a
make a
question.
motion to approve the bid from Cutting Edge Lawn and Landscape.
I
I'll
support.
second.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Motion by Mr. Montry, supported by Ms. Tinneberry. Discussion, Mr. Steiner?
Just comment a friendly amendment that I know it's in the papers, but we should add in there that it is at the $45 per hour rate as proposed.
Accepted.
Okay,
Yes, me too.
okay. Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8, E, approval of a courtesy notice from the ordinance department for a violation of a township ordinance. Mr. Damon Cecil?
Yes, what this is in reference to, as I sent out, and I actually was watching the meeting this evening when, in your public comments in your earlier session, about people calling in. We get lots of complaints regarding people calling in about things that are violation of the ordinances, but when it comes to being the complainant, they don't want to be. They feel that there'll be some retaliation. I introduced this program last year, and we didn't make a decision. I supplied you with something from the city of Toledo that was printed in a blade. They obviously had looked at this also and adopted the program, and they've had great success with it. What I'm asking for us to do, this would alleviate citizens having to complain about the types of violations that I have listed on that form. Now, other violations that are not listed on there would not be a part of this, but these are the ones that we would, when we're driving through neighborhoods or down streets or whatever, that we see on a regular basis. And this particular lady was talking about campers, boats, and trailers, which, if you notice, is one of the things that I've listed on here. And how this would work, or what we want to be able to do, is I've made contact with some of the printing companies, asking them to have these turned into, instead of us mailing them out, to have them printed up in a door knocker style, like a door hanger thing, that we could make contact with the resident either by hanging it on the door, or if they were home, providing it to them. This would save us mailing, and then we would keep a copy of what, who we gave these to follow up on. And this would be prior to generating what we now call as a case. So the average people in the township who normally comply, they just don't realize that they're in violation, would have an opportunity before they got a letter saying they're in violation. This would be something that we would be, as a courtesy, letting them know that, this needs to be attended to or whatever. And then we would give them a time down here that we would be checking back to see if that was done.
Mr. Steiner?
Mr. Cecil, I don't disagree with some of these items, especially when you talked about the campers and boats and trailers. But how will you follow up when there is a specific time allotted where someone can have their camper or boat or trailer home for a weekend cleaning, pre-trip when they're going on a long trip, things like that? How are you going to follow up on that with that allotted time?
Well, what would happen is like I said, if you notice down on the form too, the officer's name and the phone number and the time. If you received one of these and it was checked off, we would assume in that you would contact us and say, hey, I'm taking my camper, I'm leaving this weekend to go camping, which is fine. And then we would make a note and say, okay, that's fine. We don't have a problem with that. Usually, most of the calls that we get aren't the campers that are getting ready, just like for Memorial Weekend, provided we weren't in this situation we're in. We don't get calls because people know that's camping season. The ones we're getting are like during the off season when the storage is taking place in the fall. The ones where the people's campers aren't really operational, and so they're leaving them out in front of the place for long periods of time. I mean, these are specific violations of specific places. It's not so much the average everyday camper type thing for the season.
So in other words, you're in your patrols, you're going to have to probably see this camper or boat or whatever stored. You're probably going to have to see it a couple of times.
Right. Or if let's say, Mr. Steiner, you called in and said, hey, my neighbor's whatever.
Damon, let me just go back though. You're talking about call-in versus what this proposal is. This proposal is for you or one of your people to see it while you're out on your patrols. So we're talking two different things. I get the people calling in. This is when you're doing drive-bys. How are you going to identify that somebody hasn't had a camper there for 1 hour, or if it's been there for 24 hours or 48? How do you do that?
Well, like I said, we would do exactly what you said. If we went by there and drove by and seen that this hasn't been moved in quite some time in the 48-hour period, then we would be hanging that on there. Or what I was going to say about calling in is if somebody called and said that and we drove over there and saw that, as opposed to sending them a letter and opening a case, we could give them one of these and speak with them and not have to open a case where you, Mr. Steiner, might say, oh, listen, yeah, I did have it here longer, but I'm going to be moving it. And then we would say, okay, well, give me the time and we'll get it out of here.
Okay, so you'd be using your cards for both purposes, not strictly drive-through purposes.
Right.
Yeah, that's something that I had a concern with as well, that you're talking about two completely different things and it's all getting all mushed together. Those are two separate conversations.
Ms. Tinevery?
Well, I am totally in favor of the courtesy notice. I'm totally opposed to door hangers. They're very expensive. Me, for one, and most everybody in my neighborhood opens their garage door, drives into the garage, closes the garage door and goes in through the garage to your house. We never open the front door unless our Ring doorbell says, ooh, somebody's at your front door. So I'm opposed to the door hangers. I think sending them in the mail on official letterhead as this is presented, or even better or just as good, you see it there, you stop by, you knock on the door and you talk to them and then send them this friendly letter. Just because it's coming in a letter doesn't mean you're opening a case. The other point I wanted to make, excuse me, the other point I wanted to make is I see that there needs to be some revisions to the letter. I think that I'm wondering, illegal signs on utility poles, that's usually not at anybody's house. How are you gonna send a friendly letter about that?
That's usually garage sales.
Can't you just pull them down? Can't you just take them off of the utility pole? It's illegal to nail things onto utility poles. So my understanding is that as an ordinance department, you can, as you're driving by, you can pull those down. And then I just see some revisions. So however this goes, if it passes, I'd like to talk to you, Damon, about a possible rewording of some of this friendly letter. But I am opposed to the door hanger things. It's expensive and they get thrown away. So I think this is sending letters better.
Mr. Francis? Go ahead. If you want to address it first, Mr. Cecil, go ahead.
Well, in regards to the illegal signs, Nancy, most of the complaints that we get about signage has to do with garage sales with specific addresses on them. And we do take those down, but that is what it was meant by the signs on the utility poles. We would send them a notice or give them a notice about it. Every once in a while, we do have an establishment that comes in out of Toledo that puts signs on our poles, in which case I agree with you, we would have to send them this.
Can't you just pull it down? Can't you
we do pull them down.
Well,
we do pull them down, Nancy, but we do pull them down. But the thing is we get some of the same people, they get their signs pulled down, they turn right around and put them back up. I mean, I wish everybody was, attentive when it come to that. We pull them down or whatever, and they would never get put back up, but that's not always the case. And usually they do it when we're not around. And in regards to the door knockers, that was an option. And just to let you know, I expense-wise, it was $135 for 1,000 of them to be printed. So that was the cost there.
Mr. Francis?
I like the idea of the courtesy notice. If it was my decision to make, is there any way to have a brief description of what the ordinance requires under each of these categories? For instance, the first one is, weeds and grass. what's the ordinance say? Because somebody's going, well, geez, what is the ordinance? They don't know. Or illegal signs, what is the ordinance? Or storage of campers, boats, and trailers, what is the ordinance? Maybe a few words underneath that explaining what the ordinance allows or disallows might help them on this notice.
Yeah, and normally, Mr. Francis, to address that, even when we're sending out letters for violation, they are always provided a copy of our ordinance to let them know what the current ordinance says. So it would be the same function.
Hey, any more comments? I'll just say, we deal with this on a pretty regular basis. When somebody calls, they want to complain about a situation, but then they end up saying no thanks when we have to take their name and information. I think it's a very friendly thing to be able to say, hey, that boat that's in your front yard that's got 6 foot of weeds growing around it is a violation. Or, hey, I see that grass that's 2.5 foot tall, and you can just take care of it. So, Ms. Tinneberry?
Well, I agree with the courtesy notice, but I think that the door hangers, if you're going to go up to the door and hang something on the door, you might as well knock on the door, number one. And number two, like I said, many people don't go up to their front door. I find things hanging on my front door and I throw them away. It's usually from anyway, I just think the door hangers, this will come through the mail. It'll make it official that you've gotten your courtesy notice.
Why don't we do this? Can a couple volunteer, work with Damon in the next couple weeks to kind of tweak this? Let's go ahead and let's get a motion going, and then we'll work on it and tweak it to where we want it.
I'm willing.
Ms. Tinneberry, anybody else?
Yeah, I've worked with Damon before on some other stuff. So.
Okay, so Mr. Steiner, Ms. Tinneberry will work with you, Damon. Guys, set a time up. You can talk through it, and but either Mr. Mantra.
I think it needs to be stated that this is for, as they amend this, that this is for while the officer is out driving around, obvious, blatant issues. This is not a replacement of just being able to make the call-ins anonymous now. I think that should be stated, if that's fair.
Well, I don't think Damon's going to be going around in people's backyards looking for chickens or anything like that. That'll still have to be complaint-based. This is simply drive-bys. You see a sidewalk that's heaved up 6 inches, you can flag that. You see a boat in the front yard, you can flag that. You see that camper that's on blocks that's been there and it's got power running to the house and somebody's obviously living in it. You can flag that. Things like that. I don't agree with, being able to snoop around and looking for things. It's your obvious things. People, basketball hoops on sidewalks in neighborhoods, stuff like that. Simple little stuff that you see from the street. Ms. Stenberg or Ms. Hirschberger?
A quick question is, one, as far as the sidewalks need repairs, is that going to get us in a lot of trouble? There's a lot of sidewalks that need repaired, and a lot of people probably can't afford to fix these sidewalks.
Well, a lot of times,
situations.
Keep in mind with sidewalks, a lot of times it's a simple fix. It's digging out around the sidewalk and cutting a root out and taking it out. But people get hurt in these sidewalks constantly. Kids, sidewalks have to be maintained, and that's on the homeowner.
I realize that, but I'm also talking, this could be a senior citizen. I guess I'm asking Damon, do you have something in your mind for this?
Well, again, we work by case basis. If it's a senior citizen, right, and that, we're going to, we have a senior program. We have things that maybe we can direct them to or that. We have things to help the seniors. Our biggest complaints, to be honest with you, in regards to sidewalks isn't the repair. We don't get a lot of calls for that. We've had a few, okay? And most of them have been in the subdivisions where the trees were planted and when those subdivisions were built as a requirement, and then the roots went underneath of them and hooved them up in a few places. What we really get on the sidewalks is the next one on there, which is snow removal, or where we have trees that are hanging across the sidewalk, impairing the person's ability to walk up and down, or as Paul had said before, basketball hoops that are sitting on the sidewalks where people have to go out into the street or around or through a yard to get past them. Or sometimes we get one where we have vehicles that are blocking the sidewalks. So those are the ones that we get the most of. The actual repair portion, I can tell you in the 5 years I've been there, I probably only handled about 4 of those.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're thinking about the seniors.
But what Trudy's saying is though, is that are you going to be going around flagging sidewalks? Because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sidewalk repairs that are probably above the 4 inches. Is that going to be a flaggable item for the ordinance department?
Well, it could be, according to this, if that's not something you want us to address.
I'm not saying whether or not to address it. I'm just worried about the cost for some of our residents to fix them or repair them or replace them.
Okay. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we have Mr. Steiner and Ms. Tinneberry work with him in the next week or so and see what you guys can come up with? And do you want to bring it back to the board for final approval then at that point?
Yeah, I think we should wait and postpone it till table it to the next meeting.
Okay. All right. You guys go ahead and we'll move forward. And thank you, Damon, for being on.
All right. You guys take care. Thank you.
Okay. Item 8F, approval of the amendment number 3 of the Bedford Township Retiree Healthcare Reimbursement Arrangement. Ms. Hirschberger?
This is something that we approve every year. Nothing has changed, but we have to sign this so we get board approval so that it can be signed and submitted.
Comments, questions from board members?
Quick.
Ms. Tinneberry?
It says effective as of January 1st, 2020, and we're only halfway through 2020. I'm not understanding why we're amending it now.
Sorry, it should have been January, but we were just made aware that we needed it signed again. We didn't realize that we had missed this.
I know, but it's effective January 1st, isn't it, until the January 1st, 2021?
This would go through, it would be effective January 1 to January 1.
Okay, that's me. I mean, we have 6 more months in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure why what is the next one going to go June 1st to? I don't understand why it's on the agenda when we have 6 more months in 2020.
Because they're still asking us to sign it, and I wasn't comfortable signing without this board approving it.
Who's they?
The insurance company, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and Progressive Benefits asked us to sign this because that's who we get the retirees insurance through.
May I speak?
Yes.
It's the plan administrator's requirement that it be signed. So we'd be approving the signing tonight at the meeting. The effective date would be January 1, 2020. The effective year is January 1, 2020 through December 31, 2020, if that helps.
Oh, are you saying then that we did not approve it in January like we should have?
That's exactly, Nancy, yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, good enough for me. I get it now.
Mr. Steiner?
So the only question then with the changes, because it doesn't specify exactly what the changes were.
There's no changes.
So clarification, no, there's no cost impact to the township by making the changes?
No, there are no changes. It's exactly like it's been for the past 3 or 4 years. We just.
The only change is the date.
Okay.
Okay, I look for a motion.
Well, with that said, I'll make a motion, Mr. Supervisor, for the amendment number 3 to the Bedford Township Retiree Health Reimbursement Arrangement as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion by Mr. Steiner, supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8G, approval of the refundable agreement with Consumers Energy for electrical work at Fire Station 1, Chief Massingill.
Actually, I can take this one.
Okay, go ahead.
This is, Chief Massingill had brought this to our attention for Station 1. We would pay the estimated cost of $11,885, but over the next 5 years, it would pay for itself. And I called, and how he explained it to me, if you go to the second to the last page, it would be page 1 of 2. From Consumers Energy. So over the next 5 years, they would be sending us rebates based on the usage of the past year. And even with they would be basing it on what was previously used, but even with the repairs, this fire station is going to be used more than it did in the past. And in the past, we have spent $3,697. So anything over that would be reimbursed to us up to the $11,885. And if that takes 3 years, then we're done in 3 years. If it takes 5 years, then we'd be done in 5 years. But it would be reimbursed. They're thinking most likely 100% based on this being used more than it has in the past. So actually, the more we use, the more money we'll get back.
Let's have our meetings there then and use up some more energy.
Good, Nancy, there you go.
Is that refund or rebate or whatever, is that capped at the 11,885?
Yes, yes. So however many years, up to 5 years it takes us.
Okay. All right, I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I make a motion to accept the proposed Consumers Energy rebate program for the $11,885.
Support.
Okay, motion by Mr. Steiner, supported by Ms. Tinneberry. Discussion, any more discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8H, approval of a modification to agreement with James Jacobs Architects for renovations to Fire Station 1. Jim Jacobs, you on the line?
I am.
Okay, my friend, go ahead. Floor's yours.
Okay. All right. Well, I put the letter together to explain the purpose for that request. When we were originally asked to put a fee together for the project, it was through construction documents and excluded the bidding phase and construction administration phase. And we kind of got ahead of ourselves in keeping the project moving to get it out to the point where bids have been taken and the construction is underway here. So my paperwork is behind, but that's the purpose of the request, is to cover the at least a part of the cost that we've incurred to date for the expenses. That is all you will see out of it, but I'm well past those numbers in what my actual expense in managing the construction is so far and the bidding phase.
Ms. Tinneberry?
What? I didn't have my hand up.
Don't tell me you don't have a question.
I'm not questioning Jacobs anymore.
Okay, anybody have any comments or questions? I know Mr. Montre brought up a good point. It's not shouldn't be part of this discussion, but do you suggest we inspect that roof at that station? We are looking at approval of inspections for roofs of all of our buildings. Craig brought up a good point. Do we need to inspect that roof since all this work is being done?
I think that it was a wise idea to inspect every roof annually.
Okay, but right now, with everything that's being done at that project, do we need to spend the money to inspect the roof right now?
I would wait till we get finished, which right now the target date is June 19th to be complete with the project. So I would wait till after that's done. I will be inspecting the flashings and things for the new equipment that's being placed on there. But an overall inspection of the roof, probably you'd want to wait till the work is complete. And either handle that this year or handle it into next year's budget as far as a follow-up inspection on it. I can do a general walk of the roof and give you my opinion on things once we get up there to do our inspections, if that helps.
Well, I guess you wouldn't be inspecting all where the bays are as well, would you? Are they doing work?
I can take a look at it, but and see if I see any open joints or any areas of concern from that standpoint. But a typical roof inspection, if it's from a qualified installer or company, they're going to take a tool, go through and check all the joints and do a much deeper inspection than what our practice is for it.
Okay. I appreciate that, Jim. Anybody else have any comments or questions for Mr. Jacobs? Seeing none, I look for a motion. Ms. Tinneberry?
I'd be happy to make a motion, but I'm making the motion is on 8H, the fact that that Mr. Jacobs' company is collecting on the what they hadn't billed. I'm not exactly sure how to make the motion, I'll be honest.
Can I take a stab at it?
Yes, stab.
Mr. Supervisor, I make a motion that we approve the request for the fixed fee of $5,000 to Jim Jacobs for work performed, and that we approve the not to exceed and the enclosed rate schedule as presented.
I second that.
Okay, motion in support of Ms. Tinneberry. Discussion. I just want to say, where's the money coming out of? Because that's been a big question with this building, and I think it's been asked a number of times. How are we paying for this project? And I mean, this is $5,000, but where are we going to start taking the funds on? Mr. Francis, you had a hand up?
Well, I had a question first. Does the $12,000 now become the fixed fee amount instead of the 5?
That's not my understanding of my motion.
Well, I'm asking what this letter means then. Is the fixed fee going to stay at 5, or is it going to stay at 12 and then we owe him another 7 for the fixed fee?
No, the fee is two separate fees. The one is for services rendered for the bidding phase of the work, and then the $12,000 is for our current work that we're doing for construction administration, not to exceed that $12,000. So we would provide the hours to back up the time spent in bi-weekly meetings and inspections and the like.
Okay, so this is in addition to the 5, because the 5 was on the first phase and this is the rest of it.
That is correct.
Okay.
I apologize if my motion wasn't clear, but going back to Mr. Supervisor's point, where are we on generalized financing?
Well, so far we've paid for it out of our reserves. I have been in contact with American Trust, and just today received they call it a term sheet, where the bank is willing to offer us a loan for 10 years at 3.5% interest.
Boo. I say we paid out of our $2.5 million we have. Ms. Tinneberry?
We don't have it.
Well, we
Yeah,
say
my question,
that number every meeting, but go ahead.
Pardon me?
Hear that number every
Mr.
meeting.
Francis,
Go ahead, Ms. Cinderberry.
Mr. Francis said Monroe Bank and Trust. I think they're no longer, are you talking about Merchants Bank or what?
I'm sorry, you're right. The guy that I've been dealing with was with Monroe Bank and Trust for a number of years, and now is with First Merchants. If I misspoke, it should be First Merchant.
For the record,
I just wanted to make sure you weren't trying to pull something out of their football.
No,
For the record, I wasn't booing First Merchants. I'm booing the fact that we, just last meeting, budget meeting, we're told we have $2.5 million in our reserves. The meeting before that, we're told 1.4 million. Now I'm being told we don't have the money, so.
can I speak to that?
Sure.
In our budget meeting, we were looking at, if we approve the budget as presented without the adjustments that we have made so far, we'll end up with about $1.5 million at the end of the next fiscal year, a year from now, in our fund balance.
Okay, how much do we have right now without the changes?
Without the changes in what?
Without the budget adjustment, budget changes that we're making. Forget about the budget. How much money do we have now in our reserves? 2.5 million, right?
I don't know. Hold on a second.
Let's say we go through this budget and we save the money we need to save, we're still gonna have 2.5 million. Right?
You don't understand the budget process, apparently.
Okay, well, you don't understand how to explain it apparently, because this board's extremely confused on where we're sitting financially.
Originally, when we talked about these renovations, it was a long time before the virus hit and the economy tanked.
Okay.
We talked about spending it out of our reserves because we had the money at that point in time. My point is, with the uncertainty of our revenue stream, the pretty close to certainty, and we're losing 40% of our state shared revenues, I don't think we ought to spend any excess money on this project. We should save that to fund our regular operations.
Yeah, that
was. Pardon?
Paul, you're talking about 3.5% interest when we have money in the bank. You're talking about $40,000 for bond. I mean,
we're not talking $40,000 for a bond. This is a loan.
A loan, 3.5% over that. What does that equal out to over 10 years? On $800,000, $750,000.
I don't have that number with me.
I could bet it's probably more than $40,000. Well, anyways, here's the thing. If what you're saying, I get what you're saying. If we don't save 40% out of our 2.9 state share revenue, whatever that is, 40%, it's about 1.3 million. If we can't show that in our budget, that we can cut that, you're right, we're going to have to pull out of that. But I believe this board, we've already saved almost $500,000 and we're not done with our budget. I think we can get to the 1.2 million mark we need to get to. But tough decisions are going to have to be made. But I think it's very poor decision to spend our money out of our savings and our reserves. We were on a webinar today. We need to budget out 3 years, 5 years for this. This isn't just a year fix. We can't take $1 million out of our budget in hopes this changes next year. We got to plan for years out. This is
your answer just a couple of minutes ago said we can take 700,000 out of it.
Exactly.
I don't think that's the wise thing to do. I think we ought to save our current working capital until we get through this financial crunch. If the money comes back, we pay the loan off early. There's no prepayment fee.
We're paying on a township hall still after 15 years. And Mr. Clemens, go ahead.
I just was going to say, so the answer to my question, thank you, is that we can either pull it from our own funds or we can finance. For my purposes of tonight, my question's been answered, and respectfully, I would call the question on the motion.
Okay, let's moving forward. Could you do the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinderberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8I, approval of change order number 5 for renovations to Fire Station 1. Chief or Jim?
Okay. Change order number 5 is related to 3 items. One of them is a deduct of $799. We were able to find a different solution, which removed the cost of connecting the ductwork. So we were able to pull that back out of the project and not affect the function of the space. So that's what that deduct is related to. The next 2 items, 7 and 8, are related to the west wall. When the brick was removed and they started doing the repair work that was within the bid for the repointing and the sealing of that wall, they found that the lintels that were in the windows that are being added back in were rotted and pushing the brick off of the face of the veneer. There was 2 that were being put back into use as windows, and then there's one up which is associated with the conference room that is being left bricked in, but they noticed the same problem occurring there, which means that there's ongoing deterioration within the wall with the rusting of that lintel that is expanding and pushing the brick off the face. So we broke that down into 2 separate numbers, or they broke it down into 2 numbers for us. And consequently, the extent of the work is identical in quantity of material and hours to put it together. One relates to 2 smaller windows, and one relates to the larger space. It is possible that you could defer that second, actually I think it's the middle item, which is the conference room window, because if we do it now or we do it in deferral a year, 5 years, whatever time period it forces the issue even further, you could push that down the road. I don't recommend it. It'll never be cheaper than it is now to fix that. The other 2 are kind of necessary to do now because the window is out, and it will definitely cost more money to do that in the future. So it is possible, which is also why they broke it into 2 separate numbers. But when I went back and double checked some things, because the numbers were identical, and I made another call to the contractor today just to confirm it. But the quantity of material is the same steel lintel size because the 2 windows make the one, and the amount of brick that we're building back in to lower the head of the window to fit below the ceiling, and to remove to do the repair on the southern lintel, it all works out to be the same math. So that's the purpose of those 2 adds, is to make those structural repairs.
Okay,
and then the resulting number is, as you see at the new contract amount of $726,605.15.
Okay, comments or questions for Mr. Jacobs? Okay, I look for a motion.
Are we approving 3 change orders tonight, 7, 8, and 9, Mr. Jacobs?
No, it's one change order for a total amount of $7,083 with those 3 items within it.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make a motion that we approve the change order annotated number 5 on the paperwork we received for $7,083 as an additional expenditure to the repair and construction of Fire Station 1.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye, Mr. Peroni.
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 8J, go ahead.
Just a quick comment and update, I guess, like I say, June 19th is their projected date. They were able to get started back on construction shortly after the state shut things down as a emergency style project related to the fire station. With the chief's assistance, they were able to get back to work. So they're staying close to schedule. And things are looking good. The finishes are starting to be put into place as far as the flooring, the paint, those kind of things. The glass doors, I believe, will be installed yet this week, is what my impression was from talking to Chris today on progress. So things are moving along and nearing an end. So at some point, if you all want to take an opportunity to come over and do a walkthrough of the facility, we'd be glad to do that before things get wrapped up. If you so desire, just let me know and we'll get it scheduled for you.
Jim, why don't you email the group with a couple of times that you'll be over there, maybe give the opportunity, and then you could just show up type deal. I'm sure, that would be something we take you up on. So thank you for being here. Okay, item 8J, approval to renew service contracts for roof inspections with T&J Roofing. This is something that's been done in the past. Looking to bring it back. As far as car park, that would be for the park building. That would have to be charged to the park board. Fire station at Lewis. That's roof that needs to be inspected probably more frequently. Same thing with Samaria Community Center. The substation at Jackman, we got White Park, which I'm not really sure if does the park board actually own that concession stand, or is that owned by 3B? Do they maintenance that? PC would probably be better to answer, maybe, possibly.
The contract has recently changed a couple of times, so I don't know off the top of my head. I believe it's a hybrid agreement where they handle the maintenance, they oversee the building, and the park board has underwritten some expenditures. Okay. But I believe under the current contract that 3B bears most of that at this point.
So we need to cut out White Park Township Hall. I definitely think we need to get back on a regular inspection with that. There's things that we can catch. Fire station off Dean Road, the fire station off Temperance. What do you guys think? Should we inspect the one off Temperance or hold off on that one for a little while? Like I said, the main area that they would working area is the front area, the whole bay area. That would be an area that he would need to inspect. So I say we might as well do it after they're done with the instruction. Once they're done with the construction, we could have a professional go in there and check the roof and make sure it's good. We got the maintenance garage, which that's kind of was a question, if we're going to stay in that building. If we're not going to stay in that building, do we want to spend the money on inspection? Maybe it'd be a good idea to see where it's at as far as lifespan, and then we got the Bedford Branch Library, which Mr. Montroy asked a couple questions about that. With it being a metal roof, how often do you have to inspect it? I don't think it needs to be done every year, but ice guards fall off over the wintertime, straps break on gutters. They check the ridge. They walk that whole roof. A lot of caulking areas that caulk wears, so they keep caulk up. So, Mr. Neri?
I think this is very reasonable, also, are almost inexpensive for 8 to 9 buildings. I think the maintenance garage, as long as we are still in it, it needs to be inspected, what we do in the future. You know, I mean, we can, if we do something with it, sell it or whatever, the new person has, a roof that's already inspected. I think as long as it's ours, we should inspect it, but
We can't, it's not ours to drain from Mr. Owns, it's just for clarification.
as long as we're living in it, as long as
Yes.
we're occupying it. I
Correct.
mean, we want to protect our employees and our vehicles, don't we?
Correct.
That's what the CIP says anyway. So I would make a motion that we approve an agreement with TJ Roofing for $3,100 to inspect the listed facilities excluding White Park.
Second,
Okay, well,
with a question.
would it still add $3,100 though with excluding White Park?
That's what I was gonna ask about if we take White Park out.
What is White Park? It's as big as my bathroom. I mean, it's, okay, whatever they say it is, excluding White Park. Under
That's,
3,100.
Yeah, that's 250 less.
Oh, okay. That's it.
Question? Why are we excluding White Park? Do we not own the buildings?
Well, Paul, the supervisor just said that he believes, and I think I remember this happening too, that 3B Baseball took over the maintenance of, they're the ones using it and they took over the maintenance of it. Long time ago. I don't know the date, but
Nancy,
yes?
given your motion, I will reach out to the park board tonight, who's also meeting, and will confirm the physical ownership and the responsibility on that roof. Would you be in agreement to an amendment to approve $3,100 unless the roof at White Park is not the responsibility of Town Hall, at which time it becomes $2,950?
What you just said, I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah. Actually become 2,850.
All right, show off.
Looks like I'm back on.
I'll accept.
Call the question. Are you there, Mr. Supervisor? You look like you kind of fell asleep. Hello?
I think his computer froze up.
Okay, who's the vice chair?
Well, I'll call the question though.
Okay. I think he's sleeping.
Is that the new computer we just approved? Send it back.
I think it's user error. Knock, knock.
His programs froze up.
So are we then, I guess.
Ah, there it is.
Okay, we're back on?
You're
back.
You're back. We've been here.
Yeah. Okay, so did you call the roll?
No, we have a call to questions. Your turn.
Okay, aye.
No.
Oh,
You gotta give the direction.
Okay.
direction to call the roll, Paul.
Okay, could you call the roll, please, Ms. Hirschberger?
Ms. Tinneberry,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Montry,
Aye.
Mr. Francis.
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Item 8K, approval of change the internet service received from Buckeye Broadband. Ms. Hirschberger?
So everyone talked about this, and we reached out to our Buckeye rep, and he sent us this email with the costs. So currently, to go to fiber, which I don't know if everyone else thought, but I thought we were already on fiber. I was surprised to find out we were not. It would be the cost on the side. Now, we currently pay $120. So it would just be 120 subtracted from those numbers would be the additional cost we would be paying. We also contacted IT Right to find out what their opinion would be, and they believe we should go to a 50 down, 20 up. Now, Mr. Montry sent me a question asking what we currently have at the township. So we did multiple testing, and I think I have about a good number. We currently have up to 25 down. I did not get that in any of our tests. It was significantly lower, but because we're sharing right now with everyone, so it's no different than when you're at your home sharing with everyone. Maybe the kids were doing homework at that time, so it was pulling down the internet, but I think we hit 11 once, and that was the highest we hit. And then for the upload, we could barely hit 3. Most of the time it was 1.7. And we did this multiple times throughout the day to get a rough idea of what we were pulling for down and up. So I don't know if we want to go with what IT Right is telling us would be the best, or we want to look at what something on our own. But I think anything we go with right now is going to be better than what we have. We do not have a cap on internet. We are unlimited now. We will be unlimited then also if we go to fiber. So that won't be an issue for us.
Ms. Tinderberry?
Is this 120 and these numbers on the side here, are those monthly? Is that a monthly fee?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So currently, like I said, we're paying the 120 a month.
I have a question. And I don't know if this is appropriate to discuss now, but something I thought about when I was looking over this is, what do you guys think about doing this at the library as well? I don't know what their speeds are. I don't know if they already have fiber optic or anything like that. I just know that their internet's garbage, and I feel like the entire point of a library is to be able to provide information and provide access to information. Like, to me, I feel like that is way more important than getting new carpet. So I don't know if that's something, and I don't know if it would make any difference in our cost if we did both buildings or anything like that. But I was just curious what the board would think about that.
I think it's a good idea, Craig. Could you just bring that up in the advisory board meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be able to do that? And then maybe we could
Next time we have a meeting. I don't know when. We haven't had a meeting in some time. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard that it's slow over there. You know, it's not the best. But Ms. Hertzberger?
I just wanted to say these are two separate bills, so it wouldn't affect one or the other if one goes with and one does not. I do not know if the library has fiber. I know it's already currently at the township. I thought we were on it, but apparently only our phones are in the fiber right now.
Judy,
So
I
ours
believe
will be an easy change.
I believe fiber is out there. I'm just not sure it's connected in the building or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't look either. They do have Buckeye there, correct?
They just switched to Buckeye, yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I look for a motion.
Well, I'd make a motion, but I don't know what 100, I don't know what these numbers mean. I'm not computer literate, nor am I.
I personally right now would go with IT Right suggestion better than any of us.
When I looked through those, that's where I was, about the range I was thinking. And then when I turned my page and said that IT Right said that same thing, it kind of confirmed that I would agree with that. If you, for your explanation, Nancy, so you have those are, do you know the difference? Download speeds versus upload speeds?
I don't really care, Craig, I mean, because we're two octogenarians in our home, so let's not worry about that. So the 50 down and the 20 up, the 50 down and the 20 up, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I would have thought too, yes.
Okay, I move that we do that.
I'll second.
Motion in support of it, Mr. Steiner. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Moving on.
Excuse me, can I just say, I apologize to Craig. I do want to know, I like to be educated, but can you do it for me on a later time? I'll call you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 8L, approval of 3 AED units for the Sheriff's Department. Okay, this is something, is it Sergeant Pauly? No, it's not Sergeant Pauly anymore. Isn't it?
Chief Deputy.
Chief Deputy.
Chief Deputy.
Can't keep up with the titles. Okay. So he called us and said, hey, they had a good opportunity to replace the 3 AEDs that are in the sheriff's vehicles. These are the AEDs in the sheriff's vehicles. I guess there was a recall on them. And once they went through it, this is the price we got. So typically, this is about the price for one of them. Probably less than the price for one of them. Excellent. Anybody have any comments or questions on them? I know they're getting pretty old, but. What's that, Ms. Tinneberry? We can hear you whispering.
My husband asked me a question. I told him he could go to the bathroom if he wanted to.
Oh, he asked for that. All right, any comments or questions?
Mr. Supervisor, if there's no questions, I make a motion that this board approve the purchase of 3 AD units for the sheriff's office at a cost of $1,033.32 as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Clemens is seconded by Mr. Steiner. Discussion anymore? Seeing none, Ms. Hirschberger, please call the roll.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Okay, moving on to 8M, approval of a resolution to publicly oppose the Trace Act. Mr. Montry.
Yeah, so I assume everybody else received the same barrage of emails I received about a week or so ago concerning this bill to hit the floor. It's not passed. It's not passed the House. It's not anything. It's literally nothing yet. The contact tracing is being seemingly looking like it will be being pushed down, forced or billed in any, I don't know, it seems like it doesn't matter much anymore whether something is legal or not until it has to fight its way to the Supreme Court. So I don't know in that regard what the legality will be, but it looks like it's something that's being pushed down from the state. I see it as something that is an obvious violation of HIPAA laws. I think there's a lot to this. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I kind of worded it simplistically and at the same time somewhat in a rush to be able to get this on our agenda. 3 weeks is a long time in the current political climate in the state of Michigan, and I preferred to get this on our agenda and simply make a public statement. So if there's any questions or...
Mr. Goldsmith, you want to speak to this?
I suppose if you want me to.
I do.
Well, probably all know what my opinion on resolutions of this nature are. We're a statutory body, and we derive our authority from state statute. We have our job to do. State has its job to do, and the federal government and our Congress has its job to do. If we oppose something like this, I think first and foremost, we should individually be contacting our representatives at the state level and at the federal level and let them know that we oppose something that's being proposed either at the state or the federal level. For us to publicly oppose something, and it doesn't come within the purview of our statutorily authorized conduct, in my opinion, and it's nothing more than window dressing, in my opinion. Some may not like that advice, but that's my advice.
Any other board members have any comments, Ms. Tinnevery?
I totally agree with Phil. I will publicly say I personally oppose it, but as a board member, I don't feel like I have the authority to act on the public's behalf in this regard. I agree with everything Phil said. We should be contacting, not as a board, but we should be contacting our state representative, our state senator. We should be contacting the governor. We should be making ourselves known if we're in any group that totally the whole group agrees on the same line. I think a group like that has the authority and right to write letters. But as a board, as Phil said, where we're acting on behalf of the public in Bedford Township only, we have no way of knowing whether as a community the majority of people would feel the same way. So actually everything Phil said I believe is totally accurate, and I just don't think that the board, capital B, Bedford Township Board, really should be acting in this regard as 7 members without knowing what, and we heard tonight already that not everyone in the public supports that. So our responsibility is to act on behalf of the public. The oath we took is that we would support the Constitution and the Constitution of the United States and the duties of, in my case, trustee, and none of that relates to the Trace Act. But personally, I agree with what Craig said, but as a elected official, I don't think I have that authority to act on behalf of the public.
I would say 2 things. I agree with contacting your representatives. But I would also say that's not the advice that you would give a state elected official to contact their congressmen and senators when things are that I think there's, as us as a legislative body, I believe that's a shirking of responsibility to a certain degree. I don't think and I understand the statutes. I understand the I forget what Phil had decent verbiage on the description, and maybe that's so, but at the same time, I feel a sense of responsibility to make a stand. I feel like I have a responsibility in this role to make a stand for what's right, and I think that opportunity should be taken, and whether it's something in the wind or however you put it, I still think it's appropriate.
The difference, Craig, is the state representative. This is House Bill 6666, and I think it's interesting the number, but it's House Bill. It's for them to vote on. So we, as their public, need to let them know what our take on this bill is. It's not a Bedford Township bill. If you were to come up with a resolution or proposal, that would be different. It would be voting, but for you to come up with it, it needs to apply to Bedford Township. Your role doesn't exceed the borders of Bedford Township.
Any other comments or questions, thoughts?
I would also, I would respond to one of the comments made earlier. One of the comments made earlier was that this is a voluntary thing. And my response to that is just like anything, it's voluntary until it's not voluntary. I think that there are, my apprehensions come from study of recent history, specifically Soviet Russia, and this is a giant red flag to me, similar to the same reasoning why I made the resolution to support the Second Amendment not that long ago, and the same reason I fought for or fought against the Knox box situation is that my study of history and my study of like civilizations, this is a giant flag, and I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to try to fight it in a way that I had the opportunity.
Okay, well, how do you want to proceed? I mean, it says approval.
I'll make the motion. I make a motion to approve this resolution. This board does hereby publicly oppose the proposed bill, HR 6666, short name COVID-19 testing, reaching, and contacting everyone, the TRACE Act, along with any other attempt to force so-called contact tracing upon the citizens of this township. You can say seeing none if you want.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, do we have support? Okay, seeing none, the motion has died. Okay, moving on to number 9, comments from the public. Comments limited to 5 minutes for each individual. How you doing this evening? Go ahead and state your name and address.
This is Lamar Frederick. I waited to find out what you were going to do with this resolution at the end. I'm pleased that you have not moved forward. Number 2, this is a responsibility of the board for the health, safety, and welfare of all the citizens of this township. And if this is a health, safety, and welfare issue, I would be very surprised that you would take offense to a federal statute. And that's what this is. This was put together by a representative from the Chicago region, and he believes strongly that that there should be this opportunity for those who wish to participate. So my view is that I'm glad that you didn't go forward with this, and if you have individual issues that you want to bring up, talk to your representative at the federal level and the senators, and tell them you don't like it personally. But you can't speak for me on this one. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Good evening. Go ahead, state your name and address.
So my view is that I'm glad a photo with this and that individual want to bring up.
George, do we have the next caller on? I can hear Lamar's comment from before, like a recording playing back.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you have two callers on at once, George. You have Gail Keane in the waiting lobby and then another caller holding on. Gail, you're going to have to hold on.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Go ahead and state your name and address, please.
Okay, hi, this is Jody Russ. I live at 1273 Winding Way, and I was watching the meeting tonight and saw that you guys discussed the internet at the Bedford Library, so I just wanted to clarify this for you guys. The internet at the Bedford Library is on Buckeye Fiber. The internet is paid for by the Monroe County Library System, not by Bedford Township, and currently they have a tier right now that provides 50 megabytes of download and 20 megabytes of upload, as Trudy was suggesting. The library system pays $552 a month for that service for us to have at the library, and it's the best that we can get at this particular time. So I don't disagree that we wish we had better to provide for our patrons, but sometimes we have 100 plus people in there all using Wi-Fi at the same time, and the degradation that Mr. Montry referred to is often just because of the sheer number of people that are online at the same time on Wi-Fi as opposed to being on a network connected computer. So I just wanted to clarify that for you, and I'm also glad that you didn't move on that final thing that you guys were voting on. I think Mr. Montry needs to remember that he's an elected official representing the entire township, everybody who lives in this township. He can speak to his own beliefs to the people that are elected above him, but that's a personal thing, which I also do that. I sent out things today that I personally will say things to people, but I'm not going to speak as a representative of Bedford Township or as representative of the library system when I do things like that, because that's not your role. So as an elected official, please remember that you're representing everybody in our township. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next comment, please. Hello, please go ahead and state your name and address. Hello, go ahead and state your name and address, please.
Okay, go ahead. Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance.
How you doing?
Nancy, thanks for the work on the policy book. I hope this will be available at the clerk's office for public inspection, and I hope that the board enforces it. I'm also going to make a comment that the statement that was made regarding the FOIAs had a really threatful and intimidating tone. And the public needs to know it is the right of anyone to FOIA public records, even to FOIA copies of FOIAs. That's our right. And we should not be intimidated, and someone should not lose a job because someone does do a FOIA. In another comment, the stores in my stomping grounds were all open. And I want to know from the other board members, are your laptops paid for and provided by the township to you? I would think that maybe the person that needed a laptop could have borrowed from his deputy or a neighbor or a friend or a spouse. We also had township employees who actually spoke by phone. And given the quality of what happened there, I think maybe he's got a bad product and he may want to send it back and get a refund and go someplace else to get one. And in regards to that last policy, I agree. I don't want you guys speaking on my behalf. There's a reason for this. This is a real threat to the health and well-being of the people of the United States. And you speak about wanting to do this and comments about the governor and their orders, and yet we, as a township, will tell people where and how they can keep their properly licensed properties, vehicles on their own. Now, maybe we should do away with the ordinance and ensure that every subdivision has a homeowners association and let them make up their own rules. So that's just my opinion, and that's it. I hope you guys all have a good night, and I'm waiting to find out what's going to happen at the budget meeting Thursday. So have a good night.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yep, bye-bye. Okay. Any more comments from the public?
Yeah.
How you doing? Could you state your name and address, please?
Yes, Dale Track, 2842 Sanibel Lane. Are you there?
Yep, go ahead with your comments, sir.
Okay, well, I'd just like to thank Mr. Francis for his years of service with the township. It's greatly appreciated. We haven't always seen eye to eye on things. However, your service has been greatly appreciated. And I'd also like to add, may your glass be ever full. May the roof over your head be always strong. And may you be in heaven half an hour before the devil knows you're dead. And may you have a healthy retirement.
Are you done or you have more?
I'm done.
Okay. Have a good night. Thank you for your comments. George, do we have anybody else? You say we have one more call holding? Okay. Okay, moving on to comments from township board members. Or was that one more coming in or no? No? Okay.
That was a hang up.
Okay. Mr. Steiner?
I'm going to pass this evening, except for just tell everybody to continue to stay healthy and just do the right thing for yourself. And take your personal self and help people around you. Stay safe.
Okay, Mr. Clemens. Hold on. We're getting some terrible feedback.
Everybody should mute, except for the person talking.
I think Mr. Peroni is froze up again. Not sure if that came through because there was the multiple echoes, but I just basically said, do the right things to stay safe for yourself and also those around you. That's all I have.
I believe he came to me next, so I'll go ahead and go. All I was going to say is congratulations, Nancy, on getting the board package put together. A lot of hard work, and Trudy, Rick, everybody that had a hand in it. Now it's our job to live by it.
I'll go ahead and jump in since Mr. Peroni's frozen. If you don't mind, Mr. Francis, let's let him go.
I don't think Peroni's computer is frozen up. I've seen that stare before. Well, it's a little out of turn, but I have thoroughly enjoyed the time that I've been allowed to serve the residents of Bedford Township. 15 and a half years. 8 as trustee and 7.5 as treasurer. I'm extremely confident that I'm leaving the job in very capable hands because the board saw fit to appoint my deputy to take my place until at least November 20th when whoever wins the primary election is. It's been a pleasure. We've gone through some rough times together over the years. We had a huge financial hit roughly 10 years ago. We made some appropriate cuts, laid some people off, made some changes, and balanced our budget at that point in time. We're looking at roughly the same kind of a thing now. The comments earlier about whether we want to borrow the money for the for the fire hall renovations, I'd stick with my advice. I think, and told the banker that when we were talking, that in my opinion, given the uncertainty of our finances for the next couple of years, I don't think we ought to take $700 and some thousand out of working capital to pay for a long-term asset. We should borrow that money that gives us a little flexibility. In a couple of years, if the situation turns around and our finances change good, we can always pay that loan off. But we haven't sacrificed working capital that we might need until this financial turns around. So that's a matter that the remaining board members will have to decide on that. I don't know what to do about any follow-up with the contact that I've had with First Merchants Bank, whether we proceed or not. But I'll be working on that in the next few days. But anyway, thank you for the privilege of serving. Thank you for your board members. I've appreciated each and every one of you over the years. Thank you.
Mr. Goldsmith, a quick question for you, sir. I know it's the only comment time, but should we make a motion to appoint a moderator?
That's an excellent idea. Until Mr. Peroni regains access, that would be in order.
Okay. With that said, I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Clements as moderator.
I'll support that. Do we need to do a roll call or?
If you're the meeting organizer, press no now.
He might be back.
Hey.
Oh no, we've been having issues with our We've been having issues with our internet here. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, Paul.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure it worked. I was calling in, so George should be seeing a call-in number right now. Has everybody commented but me?
No.
Okay. Well,
No,
that's me.
the only ones that commented were Rick, TC, and Paul Francis.
Okay. Mr. Montry?
Good?
Yep,
All right, so I would
George,
say.
you there?
Am I live?
You are.
Okay. In our current political climate, I believe that the most important election this year for Bedford Township will be who the sheriff of your county will be. I think that the residents need to know where their future sheriff stands and will they protect the Constitution and individual liberties, or are they looking to enter us into a police state? Addressing comments from previous comments, I would challenge anyone and everyone to look up the people who sponsored that bill. And if that's who you choose to align your political affiliations with, then I believe that you and your conscience have to deal with that yourself. I was also told multiple times that I'm supposed to represent Bedford citizens. And I believe that's what I'm doing. Maybe it's only 1/7 of the citizens, but I think that's why you have a board, and I think that's why there's checks and balances on those kind of things. So that I did my part. I think everybody on this board received the same emails from residents that I did a week or so ago, and I'd like to believe that I was representing those citizens. That's all.
Okay, Mr. Who hasn't commented? Ms. Tinberry, have you commented? Go ahead, Ms.
Not
Tinberry.
yet. I was waiting for you. First of all, I have a question for the letter at the bottom. I didn't want to pull it for discussion. I just asked the question, probably Trudy can answer, but the transfer of notice of ownership of that liquor license, It seems to me that it's going from the same person that it's coming from. I don't understand that. It says Rivalry Bar and Burgers, and then it's going to Rivalry Bar and Burgers. If you could just look into that and either email me or give me a call. Nobody else seemed to have that question,
Well,
so just.
They probably bought the name, so the name wouldn't change. It would look like it's going from one, but the ownership probably changed in the background. And Phil, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I would assume, because the homeowner is listed as Nick Ort. Now, it doesn't show, let's see, the previous owner. Well, I don't see the previous owner.
Up there, the applicant care of Nick Ort.
Well, that's because they would send it to him saying that this is going to the different locations. But we don't have a choice in the matter. I mean, we can tell them we're against it, but it's their decision, not ours. But that's what I can think of.
I understand our participation is nil, but I just thought the whole thing was confusing, so.
Right,
Anyway.
That's the only thing I can think of, is that they bought the name, so the name hasn't changed, but I know this was up for sale. It's been up for sale for quite a while, that location.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Well, other than that question, I'm going to continue to beat the, I know I'm the only trustee, but the trustee position, having been in another board position, I didn't take the trustee position as I do now, sitting in this chair. And I continually find myself to be offended by hearing from employees things that the board should be telling me, or things that should come up from the board. I don't think that the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer should be discussing wages, salaries, benefits with employees before coming to the township board. I understand that I'm a fish out of water, I believe myself, but the trustees are equal. Maybe we all need to look up that word, but we are equal on the board. Last meeting, I heard a call-in person when referred to my connection with Michelle Bork and how we pursued that reappointment. Nothing against what we did, and I'm happy with what we did. However, the caller said, but she was just a trustee. Well, a trustee is equal to a township treasurer, and a deputy treasurer is not equal to a trustee. So a trustee is a duly elected person by the taxpayers with equal authority and rights on the township board. And a trustee has more authority and ability to make policy, change policy, vote on policy than a deputy treasurer. Again, nothing against the deputy treasurer. I'm referring back to the comment where the public is encouraged to believe that we are just trustees. I talked at the budget meeting about all the time, many times, talking about getting budget adjustments before we do spending. It seems to fall on dead ears. I came in this week to make changes to the policy as I was asked to do. I came to the trustee's office. I can't even get into the trustee's office. The trustee's office was moved. When it was built, when this building was built, trustees were equal on the first floor with the supervisor, nice office, clerk, nice office, treasurer, nice office. The trustees had a nice office. Now the trustees are upstairs. The computer up here is, I think it's a DOS. I think it's on the DOS operating system, actually. I couldn't get in. My password, all of my documents that I have typed since 2013 wiped out. Everything I ever typed, which is many, many memos, documents, policy, wiped out. There's nothing in Tinbury.com. I don't have a key to this office. There's something wrong with me having to be let in by a part-time person to come and open the office door for the trustees for me. It's just not right. Let's see, I have one more thing. Okay, well, support, I guess going on and on makes no difference, but I once said to the supervisor, you treat the trustees like trash, and that's exactly how I feel on this board. I am second-class citizen to every full-time official, and the truth of the matter is, and I'm going to this to fall on open ears, I am equal. Craig, TC, Rick, we're equal. We're equal in a vote, and we're equal in what we should know about what's going on in the township hall. Thank you very much.
Has anyone not made a comment? Did I miss anybody? Mr. Berger, go ahead.
You're muted.
You're on mute, Trudy.
I wanted to start out by telling Paul that it's been a pleasure working with you. I've been here the 15 years with you, so I've watched you as trustee and treasurer. You've always fought for what's best for the citizens, and I truly appreciate that. But now it's time to enjoy life with Garnet, do some traveling, spend time with her. But I'm supposed to tell you from the rest of the employees that we will miss the bagels and the donuts every Friday. I also want to let the citizens know that the applications are going out the end of this week for absentee ballots. Now, as most of you have heard, the state will be sending applications out to everyone. This does not mean you must vote absentee. If you do not submit that back to my office, you can still vote in person. The polls, as of right now, will be open August 4th for that election. For my permanent AVs, my absentee voters, you are getting an application from myself. My office will be sending those out to you. If you send it back, we send a ballot back to you. Nancy, I'm going to look into the issue with your computer and find out what happened, why you can't get in there. I did not know you couldn't get in. I knew you were having trouble looking for something. I didn't know that you couldn't find anything. So I'll definitely look into that issue so that you can get your items back. They're there. We just got to find out where they went. And then I know the township building has been closed to the public. We've been here answering phones, but Monday is a holiday, so the township will actually be closed. So no one will be answering phones on Monday, the 25th. It is Memorial Day. And that's all I have.
Well, I can tell you who will be answering phones, and that's me, because my phone never stops, and I'll probably be using the laptop that you guys bought me, so I appreciate that. I don't ever buy something that I don't need. I'm extremely frugal with the tax dollars that have been that I've been voted in to oversee. I take it very seriously, but you know, I needed a laptop to do this meetings and to do the budget meetings, and I'm sure in the future, you know, it won't be the only thing I use it for. So I wanted to say I'm totally in opposition to look out 5 years. We don't know the impact this is going to have on us as a township. It could be 2, it could be 1, it could be 3. Not spending money on interest for a loan. Wanted to update the board on the lawsuit. We had conversations with the owners of the home in Prairie Woods that is operating a business. Mr. Goldsmith and I, the homeowner, Damon Cecil, all were on the call. it's probably going to end up, here's a situation where it's at. The homeowner wants to continue bringing his box truck home every night as a work truck. That's what's part of the lawsuit, is that we're not going to allow that to happen. His argument is well, everybody else brings a work truck home for work every night, you know, in the neighborhoods and all over the township. Well, that's where we're hung up on. So we're probably going to end up in court still. I don't think we're going to get full compliance, but that's where we're at. They did rent a location to take their business to. So by the end of the month, everything will be gone except for the box truck. I think we're going to have to continue moving forward to get compliance on that. The chief's been working on completing our emergency plan to bring our employees back to work. If we're allowed to bring people back to work the 1st of June, if the governor lifts the stay-at-home order, then we'll be prepared. I appreciate the fire chief for continuing to work on that and stay up to date. The guy's on top of it. He does a fantastic job, as you all know, continuously. I want to thank Local 886, the cement mason finishers. They are forming up the sidewalk project right now. They're going to be pouring the concrete Saturday. So that'll be about a $3,500 savings. There you go. That pays for my laptop and then some. All the savings I'm working on that. There you go. So we'll be saving about $3,500 on that. We're going to have to pay for the concrete, but that'll come out of the library's millage fund. But that's this Saturday they'll be pouring that concrete. The police memorial, I've been working with Mr. Clemens, Damon, and Al Pryor on the police memorial. Talked with Bob Smith, a local resident, former general foreman for AA Bose, great guy. He's going to be forming that up and pouring that concrete free of charge. You guys all seen the pictures of it. That's 8-9 months ago. It's a star, and we'll bring it back to the board, and we're going to end up having to do something with some really nice paint or something, but we're lacking some funds for an actual really nice monument. So once we get the star poured, maybe we'll come back to the board and get some ideas of how we can move forward. But other than that, it's been a busy week. It's been a difficult week dealing with the budget. I've had some sleepless nights, but I know this board will continue to work towards saving the money we need to save in order to make our budget. I want to thank all the emergency medical service workers. This week is EMS week. You guys do an amazing job. We thank you. I want to say this board did not close the parks. Okay. I've been getting calls quite frequently that I need to reopen the parks. This board myself did not close the parks. That's a park board decision, a separate elected board. And keep in mind, you have the Wheeler Preserve, you have Indian Creek Park, you have Onstead Park that have beautiful walking trails that have been open. You have many pocket parks within the neighborhoods that have parks. You can go park in a neighborhood and go walk to one of the parks. So keep that in mind. And lastly, Mr. Francis, even though me and you butt heads a lot, I'm gonna miss you. Fun. I have some great memories. Especially the one that when you talked about farting in a spacesuit at a budget meeting and you didn't know we were on camera. You always had the best one-liners, but you will be missed, really, Paul. You have a great family. You have a lot to be thankful for and a lot to be proud of the work you've done here. So we appreciate you and everything you've done. And I'm sure Garnet's finally happy to have you living with her full time. Miss Tanneberry?
Well, jury's still out on that one, but I'm working on it.
Miss Tanneberry?
I have a question of the attorney. Phil, the supervisor just mentioned about the lawsuit. Is that a lawsuit of Bedford Township Board against this Prairie Woods owner?
Yes, it is. At the last meeting, I told you we would be filing the lawsuit. We did that in Monroe County Circuit Court. Right now, the governor's EOs prohibit personal service, but we did achieve service by certified mail return receipt. the property owners, the property owner and occupant were both served, and that's what prompted the telephone call today. We attempted to achieve, as Paul said, full compliance. There's been partial compliance promised, but not full compliance. So we're going to see how what progress that makes, but we're in court, and we'll.
Okay, my question then is, the supervisor made a comment stating, which I wish he would not have on air, but stating that we're probably not going to gain full compliance. Wouldn't that be a township board decision? I don't think the supervisor has the authority to decide during the court hearing or as a result how the board is going to decide whether we should pursue something other than, I think it's wrong to bring a box truck into a home development, and so I'm not interested in partial or non-full compliance. So I guess my question is, having heard that statement made publicly, I think that the board needs to be the one making that decision and not the supervisor.
All I'm saying, Nancy, he's not going to make full compliance. That's what I'm saying. He's not going to make full compliance.
I was talking to the attorney about
I get it, but
decision.
I was on the phone call too. So go ahead, Mr. Goldsmith.
Yeah, let me put your mind at ease, because Mr. Supervisor Peroni even said this during the conversation that we had with the occupant of that home who has been conducting a business out of the home. To put your mind at ease, it was stated during that conversation that this would have to be approved by the full board, and certainly I concur with that. Now, if he would have said, I will fully comply, I will remove all vehicles from the neighborhood, the next step would have been for me to come before the full board to seek your authority to dismiss the lawsuit without prejudice, meaning it could be refiled if the violation came back at a later date. But everything that was said in our conversation was said with the understanding that the full board would have to approve any decision that's made in the context of the litigation.
Okay, all I'm saying is, as a trustee, fully duly elected, I would not settle for anything less than full compliance. I have as much of a vote as the supervisor.
Well, and as a matter of fact, the two of you are on the same page, because he said the exact same thing. He would not settle for anything other than full compliance. And again, it will come before the board.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Anybody else have any further comments?
Just one last thing, Mr. Peroni. I was going to thank Mr. Francis, but I did not. I think he's got one more meeting that he's serving this Thursday at the budget meeting. So I'm not going to let him off the hook yet. So Thursday night, I'll give him all the congratulations and the farewell send off on Thursday night.
Well, this is his last board meeting, so I'm not going to say anything Thursday. Maybe I'll say a little something.
I'm going to show up in a spacesuit.
Okay, everybody. Well, with no further comments, and I will say to the township, some of the comments that we get from I'm not even going to say it. We stand adjourned.